Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the football podcast, and we're talking all the games from last week and all the games for this week. There's a right old batch of games this week, big numbers. Before we start, please do consider like, share, subscribe, and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. The big one, the main one, the one that we like the most. Share the podcast around. If you've got a football fan in your life, send this podcast their way. They'll be like, hey, thanks. Right, let's get started. Here we go. This is CookieCast, the football podcast.
Welcome along, one and all. Thank you for joining us once again on the CookieCast Podcast Network, where we bring to you your weekly football fix. For those of you joining us on the YouTube, you'll see not just my face, but the other three usual happy, smiling faces staring back at you. Joining us this week for the football podcast is myself. It is Mr. Cook, Mr. Woodmansey, and Mr. Moore. How are we this week, gents?
Oh, well, we'll find out shortly, won't we?
So, Mr. Woodmansey's apprehension, shall we say, could be a precursor to the fact that this week, the first game that we need to go through was Middlesbrough versus Hull City. Now, obviously, we haven't jumped straight into the recording there, but obviously, I think it's probably prudent to get this one out of the way so that we get the happier Mr. Woodmansey back for the rest of the podcast, dare I say.
Has there ever been a thing? I mean, people that have listened before might
Possibly
disagree.
not. Well, we'll see. Did you actually did you see any of this? Have you seen the highlights or?
I've seen the highlights of what there was. The actual game itself live, no, because oddly enough, I was in York, which is where you normally are, and you weren't in York at the time I was in yours. So yeah, I wasn't near a TV that I could possibly use to watch the game, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was a slightly strange sort of concept now. So I'll just go through the sort of the notes that I made. It took a little time for the game to get started. I felt nothing really happened for the first 20 minutes. And then it almost sort of sprung into life with, let's just say Borough were a little bit fortunate to not be sent down to 10 men, as the left-back Neto Borges certainly seemed to either put a hand on the Hull forward João Pedro or aid him in his journey to the ground, shall we say.
From the replay I saw, it wasn't that he put a hand on him. It's just that he really, really, really wanted one of the snazzy away shirts that he was trying to rip off him. There was definite stretching, and it wasn't hamstrings, shall we say. But so the referee seemed to be fucking miles away from anything because the ball had broken and gone up the other end. So I had no hope in making that call. And it was the fact that it was bang in the middle of the pitch pretty much as well. So the linesman wasn't particularly near it either. So it's one of them that you'll get away with in the Championship, but that would have been VAR'd and off if that was Premier League.
Yeah, I think going back to the highlights, oddly, wasn't in the Sky highlights. So couldn't even watch it back on there to see sort of what had actually happened. I must admit, watching it live, I was shitting myself because it didn't look good. It certainly looked like the guy was like caught out of position, tried his best to sort of get back on, not on side, but get back into sort of play with Pedro, and basically just fucked it up and brought him down. And then obviously the rest just seen it as just a coming together, I'm guessing, and then just giving it the sort of the benefit of the doubt. But
thing is, as well, Pedro's not a spring chicken. He ain't small. He ain't that fast. So he's done himself no favours if he's not backed himself to beat him for pace. That's for sure. he's just gambled, and unfortunately for Hull, it came out the wrong way, I think. But it's nice to hear that you almost agreed with that, because that was the first thing I saw. It whilst it wasn't on the Sky highlights, it was on the Championship show that ITV run.
Yeah,
that was included in that. Whether it's because they had Middlesbrough down as one of the playoff chasing teams that they put on, not last. Because if it was just on Hull's performance, it would be dead last every week for the last 10 weeks by now. So,
yeah. To be honest, I'd like to think I'm a fairly sort of unbiased person when it comes to the game. If
unless
something
you're
happens,
playing Newcastle, obviously.
Well, yeah, but we don't really talk about that. Like, case in point, in the Blackburn game, the goal that was scored for the Blackburn winner was 100% offside, but they had one chalked off earlier in the game from Todd Campbell that was not offside. So I felt that those two kind of sort of expunge each other, to be honest with you. Anyway, so we'll carry on with the Borough Hull game. So 22 minutes in, that's when the foul occurred, or not a foul, whichever way you want to interpret it. But Borough very fortunate to stay 11 versus 11, and 2 minutes later, they definitely made it count to their advantage. I think it was Cody Drameh attempted to clear the ball upfield, which was cut out by Hayden Hackney. At the time, I thought he just tried to get a foot on it to sort of block the ball, but in watching it back, I think and looked for where Finazaz is, and he almost sort of uses it as a sort of to try and cushion the ball and play a pass in the same sort of passage. Gets the ball straight into the path of Azaz, took a couple of touches to get into the box, got the ball out of his feet, onto his left foot, curled it in the top left-hand corner. Absolute beauty. One of those that you kind of just want to watch over and over again. Obviously, not if you're a Hull fan, but as a Borough supporter, great finish. Gave the keeper no chance, and just carried on his run of either scoring or assisting. I think that's in like 4 or 5 games on the spin now that he's been involved in a goal in the game. So very, very good start from Finazaz. It was 2 on the 41st minute. Tommy Conway got his first of the game. There was a 50-50 ball between Doak and the unfortunate Drameh once again, which bounced away with Anthony Dykesteel. He slipped the ball back into Ben Doak, who spotted that Tommy Conway had been peeling off towards the back stick. Just lofted the ball across. Conway got up at the back stick, headed the ball back towards the back post, and despite the lunge of Alfie Jones to try and save the ball from going in, he was unable to, and that made it 2-0 on the 41st minute.
This one irritated me. The first one, like you said, great strike, and it was well for what it was well done. This one, the keeper was in fucking no man's land for part of it, but also in the terms of from a Borough perspective, it was played to the back post. Defender at this point, it was Louis Coyle, had gone with the man, realised that he wasn't going to get to the man, and had the front post covered. So the keeper, rather than playing for the space, went to the same post, and they both just stood there and went, "All right then." Just as it went over both their heads, it's like Pando's got a bit to answer for me from this game. I'm sure you'll get to the next bit shortly, but he's been, since he came in, I think he came in under a bit of pressure on the basis of he was the guy. You'll remember why Allsop was binned unceremoniously as he was, caused all the friction that effectively got Rossini sacked and all that business. And he's got better as the season's gone on, but my God, did he drop off the face of the cliff in this game. He was absolutely woeful in patches. 2 good saves that I saw in the highlights, but in terms of the stuff that I seen for the goals, probably couldn't have done much about the first, but the second 2...
Yeah, I mean, like you say there, obviously, as soon as he sees that Louis Coyle's like kind of got the sort of the danger sort of covered from that perspective, he has to take the steps and sort of obviously like cover the fact that he's got the front side of the goal covered. He's got to take the sort of the back side and stuff like that. And he's obviously just. Is he only young? Is he only like 21, 22 or something like that?
Yeah, he was the Croatian under-21s keeper, as he was billed when he came to us.
Yeah.
Came with a bit of a reputation, but obviously never played. And then now, over summer, they went fucking mental and signed about 4 keepers, even though we already had 3 in the building already. Obviously got rid of a few, but we've still got at least 4 keepers on the books. And it's one of them things, you can only have 2 in the matchday squad at any one time. It's the same 2 every time, but Rachopi never gets a look in because he started the game against Sheff Wednesday in the cup, second game of the season, whatever it was responsible for the goal that they won with, and hasn't been seen again in the first team. So it strikes me as they've got one of Carl Rushworth got injured in training, and they obviously don't trust their 4th choice. So it's always going to be the same 2 guys, and I think it's either going to take probably signing another keeper in January, or some sort of ridiculous injury to Pando for him to start chopping and changing, even with the change of manager.
Yeah. So that's it. That was it up to half time. I mean, the next thing I've got is Hull's route back into the game, unless you feel I've missed something.
No, not at all.
Yeah. Do you want to take that one?
Well, it was so Casey Palmer got taken off in the place of Mason Burstow on 69 minutes, and Burstow went on to score with his first touch of the game. Just 1 minute later, from what I saw of it, it was Kamara he got a bit lucky with a sort of a ricochet off an attempted tackle, and the ball seemed to move forwards for him, which he then carried on to take down the left-hand side. The ball was just flashed across goal, and Burstow was there to head it in. And fair enough, like the cross had some whip on it, and positioning for Burstow was great. But you'd think then, after what had happened in the game, 2-1, game on, let's try and get something out of it. Yeah, didn't really work out that way though, did it, Paul?
Honestly, it's one of those ones where I need to look at the stats here, because I'm pretty sure Borough conceded in the 70th minute in like every game they play. Because every time I've gone through the book, I'm sure it says 70 or like 71 or something like that. So if you're ever playing against Borough, just know that they're going to lose concentration 70 minutes in. That seems to be the case. But yeah, like Stu said there, it's almost as if that should have given Hull the impetus to sort of kick on, and it was almost the complete opposite. Borough just sort of like went up another gear and was like, right, we can't let this get away from us again. The next thing I've got is that Pandor actually did make a really good stop from a bend up point blank header at the back post to keep it at 2-1. And then the last thing I've got is the goal that sealed the game at 3-1 for the Borough. At the 79th minute, it was Tommy Conway with his second of the game. Again, it was Ben Doak attacking down the right-hand side, definitely the man of the match. Carried the ball into the box, laid the ball off for Tommy Conway. It was around about the penalty spot, took a touch to go across the defender. And I don't know if he'd seen that the keeper was trying to come out to close him down, and then just basically scooped the ball over him just into the empty net. Looking back on it, I thought it was a good finish from Conway. I'm assuming you might have a different opinion and think it was bad goalkeeping again for the second goal.
What you've got to say about the build-up play, so once the ball came in from Doak from the right-hand side of the box, Conway wasn't fucking about, was he? His first touch was so positive that it was that first touch to me that made the goal. Again, back to the Pandor thing for this game and this game only. I say he has got better as the season's gone on up until this game, but the whole hoo-ha about him not being in the side last time around was because getting sick of keepers getting beaten on their near post. Like it wasn't great. I mean, don't get me wrong, Conway for me absolutely twatted it, for want of a better word, into the top right hand corner. But it's just one of them. Like I think whilst he did come out to close the angle, he was already on his way down before Conway had hit it. Like he closed down the bottom part of the angle and left a big open space above him, and Conway just saw it and took it. It's one of them, like you're saying about the stats. Yet another game goes by where Hull have had over 100 more passes than their opposition. Hull have had more possession than their opposition. But I think if you look at the shots on target thing, I'm pretty sure that I think no, just shots in general. I think Borough had something like 3 times as many as Hull, and obviously the shots on target were much more anyway. They just
So total shots 21 for the Borough to 10 for Hull, 8 on target for Borough, 3 on target for Hull. Like you say, passes Borough had nearly 400, 398. Hull had 507. But yeah, it all boils down to what you do with the ball and
exactly
back of the net. So,
and it's that positive first touch thing again. Great if you can have that. What if one of those is pass to create that positive first touch, or you're taking a touch around somebody to lay it off for someone else? Cool. If you're going to spend half the night prattling about, passing it between your back four on the centre half, I'll tell you what, and this is only really for me and Matt, but years ago, Matt took me to Forest, and we saw Forest versus Rotherham, and there was a whole thing about that game. The busiest man on the field would have been the groundsman at half-time repin in the halfway line. That is exactly how Hull are playing at the moment. Like, it's like they get a nosebleed if they get too far up and they've not done 65 passes before they've got to the halfway. It's so irritating at times to watch. But obviously the manager's gone. See if Dawson can turn it around. But there's no huge development on that front anyway, other than the fact that interviews are being shortlisted currently. So I can't see that we're going to get anybody in before the weekend.
has there been any movement on like the new favourite, or is it still Robbins? Or
No, they've said they reckon that they've had over 30 applications. They're looking at shortlisting it down to around 6, but one of them there was a reason for it as well. One of them wasn't it. There was a reason it wasn't going to be Robbins, which surprised me. It was an old Watford manager. Well, I mean, that doesn't narrow it down because I suppose everybody at some point in the history of time has been Watford manager for about 20 minutes. But yeah,
was it Valerian Ishmael?
Sorry, what was that?
Was it Valerian Ishmael?
No, so it's Slavica Jokanovic.
Oh yeah, fair enough. Yeah,
rolls off the tongue. So the ones on the potential list are currently him, John Eustace, Chris Hughton, Alex Neil, Ruben Sellers, and Stephen Schumacher. I think, sort of reading between the lines, I would suggest that Alex Neil and Stephen Schumacher are probably likely because they've both worked with our current head of recruitment previously. So there is already a connection there.
They're also unattached, so they won't cost anything.
Yeah, there is that.
I say John Eustace doesn't sound because he's at Blackburn, isn't he?
Yeah, so Blackburn obviously we've literally just beaten the top of the table. Well, not the top of the table, but Leeds. So can't see him anywhere personally, but strangers in the back.
It's one of those where from that entire list, I am not excited about any of them at all. But the one I would say is to steady the ship. That's the job. So
the one I would say is the one I would kind of think is Schumacher, because he did not get a chance at Stoke. I don't know what happened there, but Stoke's a shambles, and he just didn't get 5 seconds at that club. And I would say what he did at Plymouth was very decent. You look at the kind of mess that Rooney's making of it, shows that either the players weren't good enough, but I think I would say out of that list, I would put him as the thing. But I would say there's probably somebody who's just lost his job, who probably wants to prove some people wrong. And if they can't get, I would get Steve Cooper. If they can get Steve Cooper, he needs to kind of take a little step back and think. He needs to rebuild his reputation. But yeah, I would, yeah. If they can get Cooper, I'd get Cooper.
Couldn't agree more. I think I was saying last week that I would be moving heaven and earth at this point to try and get Stevie Cooper through the door. If it ticks all the boxes, they'll get him like defensively sound pretty much straight away. And obviously we've seen that he can get teams promoted because he's obviously got Forest up. So I'll sit and talk about like goings on at Hull for the rest of the time. But I will sort of like just put a bit of a bow on it for now, and we might come back to it later on in the podcast. So, predictions wise, Andy was the only person who didn't go for a Borough win on this one, and sadly, he didn't predict either of the goal scorers in his 1-1 draw. Latte didn't start, so he was always a big against with that one. And Longman, I don't recall seeing for that much time, so I don't think he started either on this one. So sadly, no points for Andy. The rest of us all had wins for the Borough. I had 3-0 with Azaz, Latte, Conway. I get 3 points for that. Stuart had 4-0, 2 for Latte, Azaz, and Conway, so gets 3 points as well. Matt, however, had Latte, Conway, and Azaz, same as me. João Pedro to score for Hull in a 3-1 Borough win. So Matt gets 4 points as he had the correct score on that one. So very well done, Mr. Moore. So that's the first game of the week in the bag. Because we've taken so long to discuss that one, before we get to Nottingham Forest versus Ipswich, we are just going to take a small break to recompose ourselves, maybe have a little beverage or two, and then we'll come back with Nottingham Forest versus Ipswich. Don't touch that dial. We just like that, the magic returns. So, Middlesbrough versus Hull, done and dusted. We don't need to speak about it again, ever. We move to Nottingham Forest versus Ipswich Town from Saturday at 3 p.m. How did this one pan out in the end, Mr. Moore?
I think after a couple of defeats, Nuno had talked about going back to kind of how they'd started the season and the basics that had got them to where they were, beating Liverpool and getting to third in the table. And so, yeah, I think it was a very workmanlike performance. I think they kind of focused on, I think it's that kind of thing of like, I think some Forest fans are getting a bit above themselves. I don't think we're quite as good as the table shows at the moment. So I think it was kind of expectation that we'd go and give Ipswich, who were an all right side, out of the promoted side, probably the best promoted side. They thought they'd give them a good walloping. We didn't. I think we created a lot of chances. We restricted them to not quite as many chances. I think Milenkovic did a really good job on Delap, kind of keeping him really, really quiet throughout the game. And Jota Silva got his first start for Forest in the Premier League, and being the kind of jinky little kind of Portuguese Jack Grealish managed to buy himself a penalty. At first I was like, that looks a bit soft, I don't like it. But, the guy did stomp on his foot, which, is going to hurt in boots. It does, anybody who says, I can't believe he's gone down after that is like, you blatantly not play football, because whenever anybody stomps on your foot with studs, it knacks, kind of thing. So, he went down, and I think the phrase is buried the penalty, because I think that's exactly what Chris Wood did. He buried the penalty. Yeah, so 1-0, workmanlike, but kind of did the job. Yeah, done and dusted. Yeah, nothing too exciting. Couple of other penalty shouts through the game, but yeah, kind of get the job done. Beat the teams that are meant to be below you. Get yourself to 22 points. Apparently, Forest weren't at 22 points until April. So we've managed to get to 22 points twice in 1 year. So, because we didn't get to 22. We didn't get to 22 points till we beat Fulham in April last year. And we've already got 22 points now. So, when obviously we'll be discussing other games later on. And, people might be panicking about that. But, 22 points is what on earth, just under a third of the game's gone. Yeah, that's the kind of thing you take at this time of year.
Absolutely. And obviously, much more importantly than any predictions we could possibly do on this podcast, me starting Mario and Milinkovic in my fantasy team paid wonderful dividends with double clean sheet that I picked up from them both this weekend. So I'd just like to thank you personally, Mr. Moore.
But how does that, I mean, not kind of wanting to foreshadow, but how does that work for tonight's result?
It doesn't matter because I benched them both. So we'll
Oh,
come
nice
to
one. I thought you had to set your team for the week and then you couldn't kind of.
No.
There you go. That's all right. Yeah.
This midweek is classed as a completely separate game week. So, from a predictions perspective, you'll be all happy to hear everyone on the podcast has predicted a Nottingham Forest win. So everyone has points. Sadly, no one had a 1-0 Forest win, but everyone did have Wood as one of their goal scorers. So 2 points for everybody. Our third and final game of the week, as has been foreshadowed, saw Manchester City winless in 7 games, taking on Nottingham Forest. Do you want to just rip the plaster off and do this one in about 30 seconds?
I think I messaged you guys before. And I've listened to some other Forest podcasts through the weekend. Everyone, the chests were out, and Man City are there for the taking. The way Forest play is ideal for kind of working on their weaknesses. Gundogan doesn't look quite as good as what he used to. Blah 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 blah. All this kind of stuff. And as I said, I think I messaged to you guys. I thought it was I either thought it was a 7:45 kickoff or an 8 o'clock kickoff. No, 7:30. So shit, missed the first goal. Congratulations, Bernardo Silva. That was a nice little tap in that you got. I have seen the goal now. The very rare for me is that I'm a glass half full kind of thing. I thought Forest put a good showing in. I don't think, and of course you go on social media straight afterwards, and the usual naysayers and those kind of ones are out going, oh shit, we shouldn't have done that. We look like boys against men tonight. I didn't think it was that bad. I thought that we gave a really good account of ourselves. We had some really good chances. I think again I messaged you guys before. These are the games when you realise that Ryan Yates isn't quite as good as everybody says. Like people kind of, I know he doesn't think he is. No, but pundits have started kind of singing his praises, and it's kind of this kind of like, how far is he away from the England squad? He's miles away from the England squad. He is a couple of places in front of me, maybe. And like, he does a job and he's got that link to the club and it's all that kind of thing. But it's on nights like this you realise that he's a bit of a one-trick pony, and really good players make him look really, really average. And I think that was part of the problem tonight. They started him and Dominguez, and it kind of drives me mad because Nico Dominguez is a infinitely better player than he is. Hence him playing for Argentina at some point. He has already played for Argentina. He plays for his national team that are a decent team, and Yates seems to get the job in front of him. I know Sangare, who I think I tipped to be the breakout player of the season, is still a long way away from coming back, apparently. But he's the player that we need in the middle. He was the player that we needed in the middle tonight to break things up, to kind of keep the ball. I thought Gibbs White looked really good tonight. His carrying of the ball was like second to none. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, obviously, Man City scored their first goal. Wood had a really, really good chance to equalise, and that could have made a massive amount of difference, but he put it wide. Then literally, Man City went down the other end. De Bruyne with a really nice finish. And then Forest kind of gave a really good account of themselves. At the start of the second half, really pushed. I thought if they would have got the next goal, they could have pushed Man City a bit harder. Didn't. Then around kind of 60 minutes-ish, 55, 60 minutes-ish, Doku, really nice finish, but like on the break, caught Forest out. 3-0. Yeah, disappointing, but not unexpected. It's kind of one of them free hits. The problem is we've got a run of, obviously, Man City now, today, Man United coming up, Villa the weekend after, and then play the Spuds on Boxing Day, which is not a great run after. Then I think we've got Brentford on the 29th of December, which is, if it's away that at Brentford, then that's, they're absolutely thingy. So it could be a nasty little run that probably sees us drop down the table a little bit, but hopefully people don't overreact.
It was one of them sort of weird games. Like, I wouldn't say, I wouldn't agree necessarily that the best team lost, because Man City were much improved tonight. But like you said about Forest giving a good account of themselves, it was bizarre. It was like Man City did all right, scored a goal, then Forest took over for a little bit afterwards, and then Man City started to do all right, scored a goal, and then Forest took over again after. It was like they were waiting for it to happen before they then kicked it up. But you can't say that they didn't have, like, there was plenty of chances in that game. That team, unlucky not to score at all, to be honest. It wasn't a 3-0 game, I don't think. On a different night, it could have come off 3-0, like 3-all. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's just one of them, isn't it?
It's one of them ones where a range of results could have happened. We could have got beat 6-0 because that's kind of the sweeping attacks from Man City, but we could have also snuck a 1-0 win at some point.
If Wood had scored that chance that he had in the first half, that could have been anything. Like, from that point on.
I think it's that kind of thing. If he would have scored, it would have quietened the crowd down and quietened Pep down, because he was aggro tonight on the touchline. He was getting on at the fans and shouting at them to cheer the team and stuff like that. And it's really quiet in that ground, considering they used to brag about how they were the best fans in the world and all that kind of thing. That, like when you're checking, I had to check my tablet a couple of times to make sure I hadn't turned the noise off. But no, they were just sat there watching a lovely game of football.
I think it's one of those games, isn't it? Well, obviously, they have gone on to lose 3-0, but I think the current run that City were on, you always sort of felt that if Forest got one, would they sort of just go, "Oh, lads, it's happening again," and sort of put that seed of doubt in their mind, stuff like that. From a league perspective, this isn't like on Forest or anything like that, but I wouldn't be surprised if City don't lose now for like 25 games on the spin or something like that. Although that'd probably take them to the end of the season, actually, so just scratch that.
But the way they played tonight, I mean, but this is what they do, though, isn't it? They go on these they might have a bad run, and then they just all of a sudden click, and then next thing you know, they have reeled off 20. Not losing. Don't lose again till the end of the season. 15 wins on the bounce. And it's the kind of thing that makes them win leagues, kind of thing. So it wouldn't surprise you.
They were saying tonight on the commentary though that it feels a little bit more like they've given themselves more of a hurdle than they've had in any other season, because from this point now they're going to have to be pretty much perfect, and that feels early to be saying that, like sort of first week in December, as opposed to like it was still pretty much neck and neck right up until like a month ago last time on it. So they had to be perfect maybe for 6 to 8 games, not 6 months. So
So, what that does for the podcast predictions at the end of week 14, Manchester City 3, Nottingham Forest 0, Silva, De Bruyne, and Doku. Andy was the most optimistic and had gone for a 1-1 draw. Haaland and Ilanga to score. Sadly, no points. Myself, Stu, and Matt had all gone 3-1 Manchester City wins. However, between all three of us, neither one of us had predicted Bernardo Silva, Kevin De Bruyne, or Jeremy Doku to score a goal. So, just those points for the 3-1 Manchester City win we all predicted, which means Andy finishes the week with 2 points. Myself and Stu finish the week with 6 points. Matt gets the win with the fact that he had the Borough Hull score bang on. That is the kicker that takes him over the top and gives him the 7th point that he needed for the win. Well done to you, sir.
Wait, whoa. A kicker gets him a 7th point. I think we're on the wrong podcast there.
Sorry, yeah, you're absolutely right. Switch over now to the NFL podcast where we go.
Actively do not.
Also, off the back of that game, I think everyone on the podcast and listening to the podcast is absolutely enthralled for the possibility of the Ryan Yates, Matthew Moore defensive pivot holding for England in the summer and stuff like that. So watch this space, ladies and gentlemen. If we want it, it will happen. Week 15 is on the horizon and brings with it 5 delicious, tasty games. The first of which sees my boys on the Sky Telly box this Friday evening. It's been a while since Borough have had a Friday night game. Unfortunately, it is against Burnley. No one likes Burnley. Burnley needs to just be burnt and just put in a bin somewhere.
If you've been, they've tried.
It's already been. It's already happened.
Genuinely, the only time I've been to Burnley, we stayed in a Premier Inn, not a Premier Inn, a Travelodge, and just across the car park was a Burger King that had been closed and burnt to the ground.
I can see the numbers in Burnley going through the roof. Andy tearing his hair out as we speak.
The flames going through the roof of the Burger King. Is
lovely. Burnley versus Middlesbrough. Obviously, it's my team. I'll give my prediction last. So let's go to, we've already mentioned him, Mr. Cook. What have you got on the slate for Burnley versus Middlesbrough?
It will come as absolutely no surprise. It's 0-2. And I imagine you've probably already written in at least one of the goal scorers in the form of Latte. And I've got Dr. Birdsog for the other.
Lovely stuff. Matt?
I've gone for 2-1 Burnley win.
Goal scorers?
Jaden Anthony and Brownhill. They seem to spread the goals around the whole team. And I've got Latte Lath for you guys.
Stu?
Burnley are up there. Borough became the league's top scorers, by the way, in the game against us at the weekend. So because Burnley are doing pretty well, Borough are firing. I've gone for a draw, so I've gone for a 1-1 draw. Azaz for the Borough to continue his rich form at the moment, and purely because I like to say his name, Koleosho for Burnley.
Koleosho.
Not the greatest name to say with a whole accent either, if I'm honest.
Something I probably should have brought up before we went into this. Burnley going to this having conceded 6 all season, which is ridiculous. Also even more like ridiculous when you consider that Hull are one of the teams that have scored against them this season in a draw, no less.
I thought you were going to say considering their manager Scott Parker, but
well, yeah, that is mainly the reason. Just baffling. 6 goals conceded all season. That is insane. I was going to go for a Burnley win, and then I thought, well, they've had bad results against worse teams than Borough, so I've also gone for a 1-1 draw. I've gone for Brownhill and Conway to score the goals. Second game of the week sees the aforementioned Hull City taking on Blackburn Rovers, Borough's sloppy seconds, if you will, from the previous midweek. Stu's team, he will go last. I have continued the theme, and I've gone for a 1-1 draw. I've gone for a Burstow second in the space of 2 games, and Ohashi to score for Blackburn. Matt, what have you got down for Hull Blackburn?
I've also gone for a 1-1 draw. I've gone with Pedro and Vyman.
Andy?
1-0 to the Hull. And the longest of all the men. Long.
I mean, at this point, it's not even a bit. I just love the conviction. He's not swayed. Results don't mean anything to this guy. He is so steadfast that all these teams are going to get positive results, and I fucking love it. Stu,
bearing in mind, we all know which game is coming up in the predictions.
People need to hang on for that one. If you've only heard us during the season so far, and you're used to Andy's predictions, strap yourselves in, ladies and gentlemen, because there is a storm coming.
Yes, indeed. Dare I ask?
Yeah, I'm quite consistent as well in the respect that we'll stretch it to 11 games without a win. So I've gone for Hull 1, Blackburn 3 in a repeat scoreline from the weekend. Pedro to net for Hull, but I've gone for Beck, Ohashi, and let's be fair, Hull City have always been fucked by people called Dolan, so let's go for him as well.
Little Easter egg for the Hull supporters in there. And any York City fans that might actually be listening along. As I believe he had a decent go at taking City into obscurity, I believe.
Well, at least he's consistent.
Our third game of the week sees Manchester United taking on Nottingham Forest. Mr. Mo's team, he will give his prediction last. I've gone for a 2-1 Manchester United win, I'm afraid, Matt. I mean, obviously, it's the second trip to Manchester in the space of, 4 days? 3 days? 4 days? No, 3 days. I can't do maths.
But yet you do the points every week.
Unbelievable. Seriously, people need to just stop taking my word for it. Go actually back through the previous week's podcast to see if I've made any of it up and stuff like that. I've gone for a goal apiece for Rashford and Diallo, and then obviously the obligatory Wood. Stu?
I've not even quite gone that optimistic. I apologise. I've gone for a 2-0 Manchester United win. Obviously, found a little bit soon as Amarim's took over. The man can even get Rashford scoring this season. However, I have not predicted Rashford. I have gone for Fernandes and the lesser spotted Casemiro goal.
Case Myro. Now, we go to Mr. Cook, and could there be potential conflict of interest in this game?
So, yes. So I decided to go a little bit the other way, some would say, with a 0-2 Forest win. It was one of those situations where I was like, obviously, the most obvious thing to do here is a 1-1 draw and just move on. But I looked at the fact that obviously Forest, they're going to need to get a win out of some of these games that are coming up, and might as well do this one. So Wood and Elanga.
Ooh. Now, there is something I hadn't taken into account. Old boy rule. Interesting. Thoughts, Mr. Moore? How do you see it going?
I've also gone for a 2-1 Man United win. We don't beat Man United very often. Last year was a surprise that we beat them just after Christmas. So I'm not expecting it again. So yeah, I've gone Rashford and Højlund to score with Gibbs White to score, because you could go old boy rule with Elanga, but I think, as I said on our chat, there's a whole buffet table full of food because that guy cannot finish his dinner. So, I wouldn't. You can put Elanga down. I wouldn't be expecting that one to cash in anytime soon.
Always fear the Rapid boys. Our fourth game of the week. Back to my lot as we see Leeds United versus Middlesbrough. Second away game in the space of 4 days for the Borough. Tough sledding against two of the top three. My team, I'll give my prediction last. Let's go to Stu.
Again, I'm going on the top scorer a bit, coming up against a team that, although they have been beaten recently, haven't been in terrible form, unfortunately. So I've gone for a Desmond. Stick me down for the 2-2. I've got everybody's favourite penalty missing Welsh footballer, Daniel James. Willie Gnonto, because... And then for the Borough, Conway and Bergzorg. Feels like a while since we've heard his name on the score sheet.
Bergzorg?
I feel like he's due.
Notched in the Luton game, and then obviously they went straight on the international break and did have a chance against Hull. Good save from Pando. Forgotten about that. Should have brought that up. Naughty Paul. Matt?
I ain't predicting that team to win, so I've gone for a 1-1 draw.
I must admit, I think one of the things I do love about this podcast is not the joy that we take in our own teams. It's the shared hatred that we have for a selected group of other teams.
And it's blind, and it's just unwavering. And we will just,
It's the delicious meal that I feel we all enjoy so many times during the year.
You lads speak for yourself. I've predicted Leeds to beat my own team, probably, I think it was earlier this season. And did it happen?
True.
No, it was the world's most boring 0-0, if I remember right. But
goal scorers?
Pirro and Conway.
I almost want to give my prediction next so we can bask in the glory of what Andy's going to do. But that isn't the way we do things around here. So I am going to have to go to Mr. Cook for his... This is going to be where he's going to pull the rug out from all of us and be like, Leeds 4-0.
You ruined it. I was setting you all up all week. I was like, Paul, I'm going to need 8 goal scorers all so that when I come in with my Leeds 4-0 win, it's going to be even funnier. So yes, unfortunately, I am predicting a Leeds win. In an alternate universe, because go fuck yourself, Leeds. You and your fucking football club and your fucking town can go to fuck. 5-0 to the Borough Leeds.
So, for those of you who haven't been listening to the podcast since the start of the season, let me just go back to the League Cup game that was played, where it finished 0-3. But at one point, I believe in about the 60th minute, Andy looked like he was on for his 0-5 prediction. Can I get your 5 goal scorers, please?
2 for Latte. 1 for Bergzorg. 1 for Hamilton.
Yeah.
And 1 for Doak.
Lovely stuff. I'm in agreement with Mr. Woodmansey and Mr. Moore. I also have gone for a draw on this one. I was going to go for a Leeds win, and then I had the realisation I can't put that evil into the world. I too have gone for a James goal for Leeds, but then I've gone for Aronson as well because I think he's wank, so therefore he inevitably will score. And then for the Borough, I've gone for Azaz, and I've also gone for Ben Doak. Hopefully, this is one of those games where he realises that Junior Firpo is terrible and just runs at him constantly for the entirety of that 90 minutes. Our final game of the week sees Hull City taking on Watford. Mr. Woodmansey's team, he will therefore give us the last prediction of the week and close out the podcast. I've gone for, unfortunately, a 2-1 Watford win on this one. I've gone for João Pedro to score for Hull. And then Eberselli, mainly because his name is Festi, or Eberselli, and he plays with the name Festi on his back for some bizarre reason. So, and then Chak Batedzi to get the other one for Watford. Andy, what have you got down for Hull versus Watford, please?
Simple, clean, elegant, a 1-0 Hull win. Medea.
I believe Mr. Woodmansey would snap your hands off for that. Matt?
I've gone for a 1-1 draw.
I like it.
I've gone Burstow and Bayo.
Vacuum. Bayo. Go on, Mr. Woodmansey. You get the final word on this one.
So, by my prediction, at this point, we would be 11 games without a win before kickoff. Yeah, let's make that 12 on the basis of you can take Matt's prediction and just half it, basically. So stick it down for a 1-0 Watford with Bayo to score.
So don't see it changing until the new guy comes in?
At the moment, we're just obliterated for any width on the basis of we are pinning our entire winging game on Kamara. And from what I have seen, granted he put the ball in for Burstow at the weekend, but as I suggested, it was off the back of a bit of a lucky break with the ball after a failed tackle. But from what I have seen, particularly obviously at home, because that's where I watched most of the games, he is a lazy shit for a winger. He is not interested in running after a ball, and that is 90% of that guy's job. That'd be a bit like me not being able to open Excel. Just saying. So I'm not confident at all at the moment. I feel like it's going to be very basic, and if we're going to get anything out of it, we're going to need some backup massively in January. My concern is that we're still too far away from the window, and confidence and points wise, we might just be too far gone by that point to kind of drag it back around. Whoever takes the job, the permanent job next, has got a huge task on their hand, I think. I'm not saying that we'll definitely get relegated or anything like that, but it feels like there's a team in there, but too many component parts are currently missing for my money. So we'll see. We'll see how we go, but confidence is the big thing, and it just doesn't. You just can't buy it at the moment.
Yeah, not the best of times to be a Hull City fan, unfortunately. That brings us to the end of this week's predictions. Does anyone have anything to bring up? I just have one brief thing that I just saw on Twitter just before we started recording. In the summer, Borough announced that they were making the decision to change the club crest, which is the first time they've done that since 2007, 2008, potentially. They changed it in the off-season to the current style, which is the Shield. And I think they're now, they said in the summer they were looking they were making the fans aware of it, and then more stuff would come out. I did see that, I think it must have been this evening, there was preliminary talks of, I think it was the supporters group or the supporters association, met with someone from the club to discuss the previous badge and then obviously plans for the future. I've only seen a couple of pictures, but it doesn't look as if anything new was discussed. I think it was more to get any ideas of what the club's got in mind and anything that potentially the supporters don't want to see, maybe. But that looks like it's moving ahead within the next couple of weeks, so there should be more updates on the website, I would assume, from that. How often have Forest and Hull changed the badge in the past? Just the once?
Yeah, the original Forest badge. I mean, there might have been different iterations of it in terms of what it was set upon, but the first one was the city crest.
Right.
And then mid-70s, late 60s, early 70s, they ran a competition, and that's where the Forest badge came up with the tree and the river and that kind of thing. And that's been, I mean, obviously, I don't remember anything different. When they won the European Cup, that was the badge. So it was, there's not, how do you put it? Not many people around who can remember the old badge would be the kind of thing, or watch the team wearing the old badge. I think, I mean, if they even dared to kind of think about changing it, I think there'd be a massive hoo-ha about it. I mean, they had shit fit about the stadium, so I think, there's, I think it's going to stay like that for a while, I think.
Yeah. Stu?
Over the course of time, we have had 13 different versions of the badge. Unlucky for some, maybe that's the trick. Although the interesting thing when I did look that up was that the club actually had no crest for the first 34 years of existence. They just didn't have a badge, which is seemed a bit odd. But the tiger's head that we all know and somewhat love, first introduced in the 70s and has been kind of in and out, but it's been a constant since around 2001. The big thing with our badge was that it was when the Allams tried to change it to Hull City Tigers, and they removed the words Hull City AFC from the crest, to which the new owners obviously put the text back on again once they'd taken over. So yeah, we've had quite a lot, but it could be worse.
Yeah. So that was all I had, basically. Thank you, as always, to these three gentlemen and to all you for listening. I'll have to wrap it up quickly, but join us again next week where we'll go through all the results and we'll give you the predictions for next week's show. Thank you and take care.
So there we go. What do you think to that? Another one gone. More games in the book. More games to come. It's almost like it's a football podcast that covers a lot of football. Ha! Big thank you for watching. Big thank you for listening. Big thank you for being here. If you want to continue being a part of the football podcast, or any podcast for that matter, like, share, subscribe, comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review, and check out the website, thecookiecast.com. There we have social media links and an email button, and that way you can get in touch with us. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to these grumpy old men talk about football. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like, share and subscribe.